Hey.
I think it has me as the training account also. I don't know why it did that.
I was wondering if it would allow
I know,
both of us
maybe.
to be
I know, I guess because that's the last one I was in. So I'm going to sign out. I'm going to jump out and come back.
Okay.
Cool.
Is it bad to change my name to my name?
No, change your.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, and you can make me a co-host, even though, because I'm sharing my screen, I won't actually know anything of.
Hello, hello.
All right, let's try that again. I was not 100% sure I'm supposed to be here, but I got an invite, so.
Hi there. Were you one of the volunteers?
Yes.
Okay, you don't necessarily have to be here if you don't want to be. We, you're more than welcome to join. I know that you did the elementary one from last night, correct? Mm-hmm. Yes. So the content is very similar. We'll do some middle school examples instead of elementary, but you we appreciate your volunteering and offering to help, but kind of similar to last night, it's very much, webinar style or just small breakout rooms. So it's, feel free to stay as long as you want, but thank you.
Okay. Well, I will. Sounds like you probably have enough volunteers, so I'll just tap out and join you another time.
All right, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Good evening. I know it's 5:01, so I do want to make sure that we start on time just because we have a lot that we want to jam in here in the short time that we have together. We'll give everyone a minute or so. Just go ahead and you can type in the URL that's down there at the bottom. This gives you a copy of our slide deck that we'll be using. And we will ask you to, and Allison is also dropping it in the chat. We would like for you to go ahead and have it pulled up because we will try to make this as interactive as possible. So we do have 2 activities that we'll want you to participate in where you'll actually be, navigating what we're going to have you do and work with from the slide deck. All right. Did everyone have a chance to get the slide deck? I'll drop it in the chat one more time. I think we had another person join us. All right. So we'll go ahead and get started then. This is our CS to the core. It's just a middle school overview. Basically, we are going to be talking about computer science in the middle school classroom and kind of the starting steps that you would need to do to integrate that. So my name is Natalie Rhodes. I am an ITRC in Shenandoah County. Prior to that, I was a middle school science teacher, and that's where my love for computer science came about with the Project GUTS computer science and science curriculum. So I started using it with my students and having them program and just fell in love with it and what our students were able to do and just seeing their excitement. And that's kind of what led me then to become a facilitator with CodeVA. And I have been with them doing different middle school programs and kind of developed some of the Coaches Academy and just lots of different things with CodeVA for the past 6 years. Allison is also here with us tonight. Allison, I'll let you give your little spiel.
Okay, I'm Allison Kapler, and I am an ITRT with Lynchburg City Schools. And I serve at a middle school and an elementary school, so I'm kind of split between 2. But I joined the CodeVA family, I guess it was January or February this year. So I am currently an apprentice, and it's been really fun just learning over the summer and helped with the Scratch curriculum. So that's kind of my little area. And then with the Middle School Coaches Academy.
Thank you. All right, so we know that you've all been engaged in a virtual environment for the better half of the year. So we wanted to just quickly go over our, just technology and engagement norms, everything that you would be telling your students as well. We would love for you to share your video. So we are going to talk to you a little bit at the beginning, but then there are going to be 2 different activities that we'd love for you to engage with. So you'll be in breakout rooms and then we want this to feel kind of a relaxed environment that even if you have a question or something that you'd like to chime in, please unmute yourself or drop it in the chat, whatever you're comfortable with. But we would like to see you all. We would like to encourage you to interact and share things that you have with us kind of along the way. So our goals for our hour together are going to be to kind of look at why we're teaching computer science, especially in the middle school. We're going to look at some of those computer science concepts and connections that can be used when you're trying to integrate CS terms and topics into your curriculum. We're going to explore, if we have time, I've added a lot in here, so we'll see how far we get, to kind of deep dive into each one of the strands and just start brainstorming those core connections that you can make. And then we'll start thinking about ways that you can weave computer science in to any subject that you teach. So if you all would, as you're looking at this, if there's anything extra that you were really hoping to get out of this, or maybe a different approach, Alice and I are both, well-versed in computer science. We think at least enough that we're a little bit dangerous with it. So drop it in the chat. We will try to meet the needs of everyone. So if you have something different that you're wanting to look into or to talk about, please just drop that and we'll try to find our way to sneak that in a little bit as well.
Okay, so let's get started with talking about kind of the basics and the background of computer science and why we're even here tonight. So if you look at this definition that's on your screen, that's like extremely wordy. And you know that interacting with students, they would look at this and be like, okay, and. So there's tons of different definitions of what computer science is. So here's the definition that CodeVA likes to use: the study of how we use computing technology to solve human problems. And that's really all it is. It's more of an understandable definition that we like to use. So if we look at universal human questions, so things that we see in our day-to-day lives and we need to be able to solve. So we use our knowledge and different systems and technology to be able to tackle all these questions that you see here. And if you look at the bold words, those are kind of the overarching concepts that can bridge that gap between CS and then also relate to other disciplines as well. So look at those bullet points and try to think about how you can bring those questions. They can relate to CS, but then also how you can bring them into your normal curriculum that you're used to teaching and that you're familiar with. So on this slide, you see two videos. We're not going to show the videos tonight, but I encourage you to come back and watch them at a later time. They are really great videos, especially the second one, I think, to share with your students, to be able to show all of the different pathways and career choices that are out there, that maybe not all of them, you wouldn't realize that how much computer science is involved in the creation of these different career paths. And I just like the different perspectives that it offers from these big creators of like a fashion design company. And I think Mark Zuckerberg's on there, and just giving background to why we need computer science integrated in our day-to-day lives today. So definitely go back and watch those videos. All right, so let's look at the myths that you may have in your mind right now going into this. Myth number one, that computer science is just programming. So programming is just a really little part of computer science. And hopefully in a few slides when we talk about all the different strands, you'll really be able to see that. Myth number two, I already teach all of these things. I just have to change the words I use. And that is a part of it. Just, you know, getting experience with computer science standards and being able to see and understand them, realizing that a lot of things that are in there, you really do already teach, and it just takes a little tweak of vocabulary, but there is so much more to it than just that. And then myth number three, that computer science standards and technology standards are the same thing. So computer technology is, those SOLs focus on the technology that we have, and then computer science is dealing with these answers to these big overarching questions that we need to solve. All right, so the Vdoe in 2016 released these expectations of computer science and what we should do with it as educators. So in Virginia, kindergarten through 8th grade, it's integrated into elective classes in the middle school, but then also it's supposed to be integrated in your everyday classes. So reading, math, science, social studies, art, music, all the things, we should be bringing computer science into that. So then, you know, that high school classes, there's a sequence of high school courses that they can take, which, you know, I feel like a big part of integrating it into the lower schools and elementary and middle school and giving them that baseline experience at an early age. I never had that, even though it hasn't been too long since I was in school, but I never had that. So I never had any interest in going into anything computer science or learning more in high school about it. Whereas now as a teacher and, you know, a computer science teacher and helping people integrate it, I kind of regret that. And I hate that I didn't have that experience when I think I could and should have. So this is what we're trying to change for our students now moving forward. So that orange link at the top, what are the expectations of the Vdoe? That is a link to the Vdoe website that you can visit to dig deeper into those standards. And we're going to give you a glimpse of that in a little bit too. So you might be asking, so why do I have to, as a math teacher or a reading teacher, why do I need to integrate this into my classroom? We talked about that a little bit, but the big underlying factor is equity, giving all of our students that empowerment that they need to have that background knowledge to then be able to move forward. And then also throughout the entire school year, it shouldn't be just a standalone course that they have for a few weeks and then they're finished with it. One of the reasons another reason that we don't have it as a standalone course is just funding. We don't have the space and the funding to offer it as its own course in the depth that we need to be able to be offering it. So once again, just ensuring that all students have access to computer science to develop that background knowledge. Okay, so a computer science mindset is more than just programming, and it reaches into all the different parts of your brain, the logical thinking aspect, algorithms, the step-by-step sequence of events or order of events. Let me let this person in, there we go. And just being able to take things that seem abstract, but then put them into a logical order, logical reasoning. So in computational thinking, some of the main ideas of a computer science mindset. So those algorithms that I touched on, the step-by-step sequence of events. You see that in the middle school when we're thinking about order of operations. What sequence of math steps do you need to follow in order to get the problem correct? Or just simply following a recipe or sequencing a story that we start all the way in kindergarten, and then they keep learning and adding to it as they go throughout 12th grade. Decomposition, so taking something and breaking it down into smaller pieces. And it's just helpful for us to be able to understand things more in depth when we're able to break it apart like that. So thinking about word problems or these big STEM projects when you break them down into smaller pieces. Abstraction, making difficult things easier to understand. So that's a big one, especially for teachers. So we're used to kind of doing that, but taking something that you do every day, like brushing your teeth, and then figuring out how many steps it is and how you actually follow that. And then the last part of computational thinking is pattern recognition. So you're identifying different trends and similarities and differences. So helping us to make predictions like the weather, or taking our writing and making it clear and concise, and that can be carried into computer program writing or just writing a short story. So you can see how through these standards, it easily ties and bridges that gap between computer science standards and then things that we're already used to doing and talking about. So the computer science standards are grouped into 6 different strands. They were developed by a bunch of different stakeholders, including teachers, the CSTA community, and then one of the things, cybersecurity, was identified separately in Virginia so that we can bring awareness to the fact that we have 44,000 job opportunities available that are computer science jobs in Virginia. And Natalie, I forget that number of how many graduate per year as
It's
computer
only a
science.
little over 2,000.
There we go. So we just don't even have the manpower to fill all of these jobs. So the need for cybersecurity education is great in order to fill all these jobs because we are just growing and growing.
Okay, so now what I'd like for you to do, just because, we're going to start thinking about it from a conceptual lens for computer science concepts, but we also want to acknowledge some of the ways that you're already teaching computer science. And to do that, I first just want you, if you don't mind, drop in the chat what it is that you teach or what your connection to, if you're not a teacher in the classroom, are you supporting teachers? Are you, what role do you play? If you don't mind just dropping that in, just so that we can get an idea of, all right, so it looks like we have English, science, reading, an ITRT, science and STEM, math, engineering, business. Fantastic. So this is exactly what I was hoping for, is that we would have a, a broad spectrum, that when we go in and do activities like this, we'll have different lenses from which we can kind of talk through our experiences and really try to make those connections. So like Allison mentioned at the beginning, when we were talking about the myths and talking about how you're probably, if you just change out the vocabulary, does that mean that you're teaching computer science? And while we said, no, it doesn't, it also is a great place that you could start to try to make those concepts and start to figure out where it is that you could bring computer science into the lessons that you're already teaching. So the whole idea, especially around middle school integrated ones. So I know at the K-5 level, it's really easy for teachers to, find places that they could integrate, just because they teach all the subjects to their group of students. So they can easily find where they could tie this standard into math and this one into English. But in a middle school setting, we're pretty much specialists of our own subject. So it would be very difficult to see how in a science class, I'm going to teach all 6 of these strands in just my science class. That would be very difficult, and that's actually not the expectation that you were to do at all. So the idea is that you are to, would have an opportunity that you could sit around with your other grade level people and decide, okay, these 3 standards would be really good in English. I can tie it with this concept. And these 2 fit really good in math. And then these 4 fit really good in science. So the idea is that it's kind of, the standards are covered over the entire year and by all subjects, but not every subject covering all. So hopefully with that, you'll be able to then look at it not necessarily from the lens of, okay, I have all of these standards, I need to make them fit, but more of, all right, this is the, science SOLs I'm already teaching. Which computer science standards make that really easy connection that I would easily be able to integrate without taking up more time or changing things drastically? It's really supposed to provide the students with more experience, more exposure to computer science in a way that they've never had before, just because we know that computer science is embedded in every single part of their lives. They just don't know how. They don't know the kind of the why and the understanding behind that. And that's kind of the perspective that we're going to try to bring. So to kind of kickstart that and getting you starting to think about what ways are you already teaching computer science that you maybe have never thought, oh, I'm already doing it. We're going to put you into breakout rooms and you're going to do a little activity. So the breakout room that you're in, you'll click on that Google Draw. So for those of you not using Google Draw, like that could be another whole session. Google Draw is amazing. But on this activity, what we'd like for you to do, take a look at the different vocabulary terms down the center. And if it's a concept that you're already teaching, so if it's something that it's maybe not necessarily you teaching it in your class, but if someone in your group either teaches it or knows someone that would teach it, or knows maybe you're an English teacher and they do that in history, you can still drag it in. We're basically just trying to show and kind of bring awareness to some of the concepts that we're already teaching. So if it's something that would be done, that's already done in middle school, you're going to drag it from that center over into the left. If it's a concept that you don't think it falls anywhere in middle school other than a standalone computer science class, you could drag it to the right. And the other thing we want to point out is that you don't necessarily have to be using the term to drag it over. So I might not ever use the word abstraction with my students, but am I teaching that concept through something that I'm having them do, some sort of activity? If that's a yes, you are teaching the concept, drag it over to the left. Okay. Now, if there are any words that you like, encryption, like no one in your group knows what an encryption means, that's okay. There is a link up here at the top that takes you to the different connections. If you scroll down to the second page, it kind of gives you a summary of that vocabulary term, just to give you a better understanding of what it is that it's actually meaning. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about what it is we want you to do when you're in your small groups? So you're kind of going to be just discussing terms that your concepts that you're already teaching, and you can give your quick little like, well, in math, we teach expressing by blah, 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 blah. And then you'll just drag it over to the left. And then we will only do this for maybe 5 minutes or so. just kind of, we'll send you a message when we're going to bring you back, but we'd like for you really quickly, just get in there, talk about the ideas, drag them over to the left, just to see some of the concepts you're already teaching.
All right, we have 5 rooms ready, so there will be 3 of you in each.
Perfect.
Woohoo,
Great.
they all in. Breathe.
Do you want to pause the recording?
Yeah.
For some reason, I can't turn my video back on.
Oh, no, that's okay.
It's not allowing me. I can mute and I can't do my video at all.
Is your video button gone?
Oh, it's there. I mean, I had been presenting my screen in the other group, so I don't know if that's the reason.
Oh, bummer. Maybe once they all close,
Hmm.
because I don't think we're all back yet. Are we all back yet?
No, we're waiting on one more.
Okay.
Hey, Jeremy, if you try to unshare your screen, like at the bottom of the screen where it says the green share screen, is there something you can push to not share it anymore?
Let's see. If I click share, it says you cannot start screen share while the other participant is sharing.
Mm. Are the
We are
rooms
all back.
they're all
Well,
back
maybe-
and the rooms are
Oh.
closed? Okay. Well, Jeremy, if you want, I mean, you could always jump out and come back in. We'll let you back in.
Oh, okay. I've got to find the link for the meeting again, though.
Yeah,
for that.
or it's okay. It's okay. We know you're there. You don't have to.
Okay.
It's okay. All
Thank
right.
you.
So, well, I think we're all back now. The purpose of this activity was hopefully to get you seeing that there are already concepts that we could teach within computer science that you're already teaching within your core concepts. So it's really this idea of trying to making that bridge and that connection through that concept. So hopefully, as I looked, I noticed there's definitely more in the left, and anything that was still left in the middle hadn't made its way all the way over to the right. And I'm hoping that was because you just hadn't really talked about that one or explored it further, or know that actually probably that concept is being taught somewhere. So what I'd like for you to do, we'll just have each group maybe share one term that they had on their sheet and give the example of how they would teach that in some sort of class, like what it is how they teach that concept. So group number 1, do you all want to start? Just pick one of the words from your list and share how someone is teaching that concept already.
We had one with the application. No, this doesn't look like our.
No, this isn't yours. This is breakout room 2. I have each of them. Yeah. So breakout room 1, here was yours.
Yeah, like the algorithm, and what was the other one? Abstraction. We were considering like to-do list. You're saying how do you tie your shoe, at the most elementary levels, or how do you make waffles in the morning, for someone who's maybe a little bit older, and so on.
Good. So now, like, even some of the most basic connections would be using the word algorithm instead of sequence, or explaining the whole process of abstraction. Like, this is why we're having you do it this way, because of, this is one way of thinking, and it's, it's a computational way of thinking. That's great. Group number 2, I think I had yours up. Is there, just pick one of your terms and say the how you were teaching that concept.
Sure. So, I mean, cause and effect up there at the top, a lot of these fit into English really, really pretty easily. And so cause and effect is one of the ways that we can teach plot. So that was kind of a very natural fit of looking at the kind of relationship between an event, which causes other things.
Absolutely, which is exactly how programming works. So even taking the chance to make that connection. Great, thank you for sharing. Group number 3, let me pull up yours.
Yeah, most of the ones we were able to put into the left-hand column. Let's see, one of them is, models. Models was kind of that got a very positive reaction. There's a teacher who teaches special education in the group said all the time, if I'm using the correct wording, but and it's certainly something we do in math all the time, and the other teacher in the group was English, and models, of course, get used in English too. So I mean, constantly kids are modeling at the middle school level in most of their classes.
Absolutely, right. And now, even making that connection to the majority of the models that are used, in science and then just in other ways are done digitally through some sort of programmed way for us to study the world around us. All right, group number 4. Someone from group number 4 want to speak up?
I was voted to speak. Hi.
All right, Yasmin, go for it. Thank you.
So between Miss Heather and myself, she is teaching physical science. I'm teaching math for middle school. And pretty much, as you see, everything fits right in the bill. Cause and effect, you can find that in math and you can find that in science. Processes, this is exactly what we teach pretty much on every single day. Simulation, sorting, structure, design. So pretty much everything fits under science and math, and we're using it on a daily basis.
That's great. That's great. Thank you. And then our final group, group number 5.
I'll go for our group. Oh, never mind. No, go ahead. I was just going to say 2 of the people in our group were STEM related people, so they were doing most of the
I'm
things
sure.
anyway.
I noticed debugs on your list. What did you all say about debug?
Well, I currently teaching STEM, but I also have kids like debug, like if like a program's not working for them, we'll like go to like the source again and try to figure out how to get that product to start working again for them, since we're virtual, and try to get them to like figure out their own tech issues versus like, because we don't have the tech support at their house. So.
Absolutely. And, sometimes it's even just changing that vocabulary, using the word debug instead of fixing. So going back and checking for errors. All right. Okay, so the purpose of that activity, I've kind of already said, is really to just get you starting to think about those concepts and those connections that you can start making for, things that you're already teaching without changing anything. How can you kind of bring in some computer science into your core class without making a ton of changes? And sometimes it's as little as just switching out your vocabulary, using the word debug or algorithm. Sometimes it's a quick explanation. So, when you're talking about abstraction and automation, explaining the whole background part of how that fits into computer science, or the way that networks work, making those connections, or computer programs themselves. So you know, sometimes it's as basic as just a conversation or swapping out vocabulary. As you get more in depth, you start to see you can really kind of make a parallel of computer science content with your core content. And that's really kind of what we're going towards and want you all to kind of start thinking about. So here's a list of this, you know, graphic that shows all the different overarching concepts that you could use that kind of make that link between your core content and computer science. So I want you to just take a look, and I know it's kind of hard to see, especially when you get into those clouds, but if there's a word there that you're like, oh, I could definitely use that, just drop that in the chat. Just one that pops out to you that you think you would easily be able to use in your class that you maybe haven't been using before, but you could definitely use that term to try to start making that connection. So decode, that's great. Debug, sorting, ordering, process, algorithm. Good. So this graphic actually over here on the left-hand side where it says click here for the word list gives you all of the words and the definition on the second page for each of those, as you can kind of start to think about it. The definition is kind of from a computer science lens so that you can think about how you could use that word and start integrating it and making those connections. Oopsie, sorry, that was what that was. I clicked on it. Ah, I did it again. I guess I have to click off of the graphic. Sorry. All right, so we're going to look at one, you know, an example of taking an overarching concept and connecting CS standard to a core content standard. So we're going to use a science example, and our overarching concept would be trial and error. The CS standard that we would use when we're doing trial and error would be debugging. So going back in and finding your error and fixing it. The core content standard that we can make that connection with would be our scientific investigations unit, which happens at all three levels, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade for science. Then the integrated activity would be having them test and improve an experiment. So you would be having them complete the experiment and then improving it and using the vocabulary debugging and that whole concept behind it. So what that would look like in the classroom. So I'm going to use the most basic example, which would be building the bridge with popsicle sticks. And I realize that that's kind of elementary, but I want to use that as an example just to kind of getting you thinking about what it looks like without computer science versus with. So in a classroom that you would do this activity without computer science and you just tell them to build a bridge out of popsicle sticks, what you would see would be students just trying it again and again and again until it works. They're just putting in sticks everywhere they can. They're just changing it until they would get the desired outcome. They wouldn't really ever be focused on why their previous solution didn't work. They would be more focused on, I'm just going to keep switching these popsicle sticks until I get what I want. If you were to do it in a classroom with computer science, you would make your emphasis on the steps. So instead, the students would write out exactly the steps, what they were going to do in order to build their bridge. Then they would complete it. Then when it didn't run, we use the word run because it's a CS term that we use in programming. If it didn't run the way that they wanted it to, they couldn't just switch out the popsicle sticks. Instead, they need to go back to their written directions, decide which step they would need to change. One at a time, they would do that, and then just keep focused on, that why it didn't work the way that it went. It really, would give a focus to their intentional, thoughtful changes that they would need to make. And they would really be focused on the why and the steps of it instead of just the end product, which is what they would do in a classroom without. So really that just kind of brings in some of these design processes. So the iterative design, the incremental design process, the learn design model, really that whole modular thinking and the planning before doing. Here's an example. There's a link here that you could have them do in maybe not even a, for this example, but anyone where you're having them do some sort of storyboarding. So the idea is that, they have their storyboard pieces set off as their 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s, 5, and 6. But this center part would be the most important part. This is what we call the pseudocode, but that's what they would need to change in order to get from storyboard 1 to storyboard 2, what are they going to change along the way? And it really gets them thinking about that whole why and that whole sequence of things, all of the computational thinking parts that we would like for them to have and really think through. And it would be very similar to what they would do if they were going to program something. So we are now going to do an activity where I want you to look at those strands. Like Allison mentioned at the beginning, we said we'd take a time to kind of deep dive a little bit into it. And we're only going to be in the rooms for maybe 7 minutes or so. But what I'd like for you to do, each group is going to get one strand. So we're going to, and I'm sorry if I didn't clarify this the first time, in the slide deck right here is where you'll find the link to what you'll need for your activity when you're in the breakout room. So you'll click on the word Jamboard. And I don't know if you all have had an opportunity to look at one of Google's newest tools, Jamboard. It's really awesome and a great way for you to collaborate quickly and have your students collaborate. So up here at the top is how you'll be able to switch to the different slides that you can work with. And then on the slide, you can add in sticky notes to add text, or you could add an image here. It's not a lot, so it's really just a quick way for you to get out your ideas. What we'd like for you to do in your breakout room, you'll find your slide. So breakout room 1 would go to this slide 2, but it says breakout room 1 here. You're going to look at algorithms and programming. And what we'd like for you to do is read through this kind of overview of the strand and start thinking about core connections that you could make. So you can just make little sticky notes and kind of give some either lesson ideas or ways that you think that you would incorporate it, maybe key vocabulary that you could use. Just when you read that strand, what comes to mind of how you could bring that strand into what you're already teaching? So like I said, we'll only have, probably about 6 or 7 minutes that you'll do in this. And then when we get back, we might not have time to share out, but this will be something that you will be able to have and keep with you so that you can kind of look back and see what some of the other groups had to say about it. Does anyone have any questions about what you'll do in your group? Okay, Allison, do you have our breakout rooms ready?
They are ready, and we have randomized them a little bit. So you're gonna be with a few different people this time, but we're gonna do 5 rooms again.
Okay.
All right, 5 seconds and they should all be back.
Great. Okay. All right. So I know that activity was fast and it was just kind of a teaser of the standards and the strands. So hopefully you at least got to kind of network and brainstorm with a group thinking about how you could take that strand and integrate it into your core content. The easiest to do is obviously algorithms. Data and analysis is pretty easy just because we're always using visualization and collecting data in all of our subject areas. And then impacts of computing, just because we can, in most of our subject areas, there is some evolution to the way that things were, 20 years from now versus now, and how technology has improved and advanced. Those kind of going back to those universal human problems and those questions that we're constantly trying to, increase our understanding. We're trying to make things better and more efficient. So anytime that you can make that connection to how technology has been used, is really tying in a little bit more understanding of how, the evolution of computer science and the impacts that it has on our society. So the plug I'll give is that we just did a quick little teaser of a run through. So if you are interested in taking more, courses, or just learning more about computer science and thinking about how you could integrate it, or maybe you are a lead for your school and you want to learn how to coach others for integrating computer science, CodeVA does offer several courses. We run them it'll be actually the whole month of June and July, where you can get single day courses up to whole week courses. So we encourage you to go to the Code Virginia website and take a look at all the different things that they offer. Especially, we've really increased our middle school curriculum and the offerings that we have. So just because we don't want you to walk away from here without anything, we want to give you a bunch of our little freebies, like we like to call it. So CodeVA is working on tools for educators to make the integration process easier. So the first thing is just, a lesson sketch and a framework, which would really be your, planning document of, an idea, a place that you could write out your computer science, thinking about the connection, that concept that you would make, and then how you would tie it to computer science versus core content. Gives you an opportunity to think about like some of the things you would want to include in your lesson. So some of the supporting questions you would want to ask and how you would assess them for both their core content and computer science background. The tools of programming is a really neat document that this will, as we get further along, and as the standards are still relatively new, there's an elementary and then a middle school one down here. But basically, we take the different topics and tell you when they should have been introduced. So going forward, your students will have learned about loops and debugging, as early as first and second grade. So these are concepts that they should come with. So this is a great tool, especially as you're starting out, just thinking about those different concepts and commands that they would learn, the different programming language, and when it would be appropriate to introduce those concepts. And then the conceptual connections, this is the document I've already referenced that has the different concepts that you could start using to make those connections. We've linked the documents from the Vdoe just for easy access, the standards and the framework. And then I'm not sure if everyone's aware, this was released about 1.5 years ago. This is their integration curriculum alignment document that the Vdoe released. It's basically taking the standards from K through 8 on the left-hand side and come up with different opportunities for integration. So places that they could be an easy, seamless opportunity to bring computer science into core content. So like I've said, they've done it K through 8, and it's not all inclusive. It's just a starting point. It's just got some ideas of how you could bring that standard into your English and math and science and social studies. Are there any questions? Any light bulb moments anyone wants to share? You can either unmute yourself or drop it in the chat. While you're thinking of that, I'll show you just some of the other freebies that we're going to leave you with. So we have some extras here. We have broken down each one of the strands into simpler language that you could either use for yourself or for other teachers in your building, or even share with students. So we've done that for all 6 of the strands. And then we've given you 2 unplugged lessons. First one is an English lesson where you would bring in algorithms and it's basically the retelling of a fairy tale through the way that you would read code. So they are going to, on an activity sheet, start to read the story of Goldilocks. And then as you go on, you would roll a dice and determine what the story is what's gonna happen next in the story based on what you roll. So it kind of brings introducing to the coding language and the way that you would need to be very explicit in your instructions, and everything is sequential and tells you what to do next. The second unplugged activity that we've given is a math example, and it's a probability. So it's going to show, the experimental versus theoretical, and then also using computer modeling. So the the lesson plans for both of them are linked up in the top. So it gives you the lesson plan and all the materials that you would need. And then we want to leave you with a few things for you to think about. So as you're starting to plan learning activities that are going to integrate computer science, here's some questions or things that you would want to consider as you're starting to think about what that looks like. And then thinking about what level of integration. So as I mentioned a little bit before, the sweet spot would be this level 2, which is where it would be a co-equal of computer science and core content. So thinking about how much is too much for bringing in computer science, it would really depend on how much core content they're also learning that's new. So you'll know your students, you'll know how much they could handle, and to what level you would want to bring computer science into your classroom. All right, are there any other questions? All right, we want to thank you for being here this evening. Hopefully that we just at least sparked your interest or got you kick-started and re-energized for bringing computer science in. All right, thank you all. And Allison and I's email is at the beginning. If you have any questions or anything going forward, please feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to share lesson ideas or help and support you in any way that we can. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.